So today we're diving into a debate between former UN weapons inspector Scott Ritter and IDF spokesperson Jonathan Conricus. I'll be fact checking both sides, trying to break down the claims and give you some straight up analysis. All right, so without further ado, let's just get into it.
Thanks for having me.
So I'm going to start with the most polarizing question first, and I'm going to actually begin with Scott. I'm not sure, Jonathan, if you know Scott's position, because that's actually one thing that me and Scott kind of went back and forth on 2 days ago. Scott, you saw this, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you saw this more of a win for Iran in many ways. Is that correct? And if so, can you just elaborate on your perspective there? And then, Jonathan, I'd love your take on it.
Well, I mean, first of all, it's very difficult in wartime. Anybody who's participating in combat, it's always difficult to speak about winning because war is about destruction, it's about death. And I think as much as Iran delivered pain to Israel, Israel delivered pain to Iran. I think that's one of the reasons why both nations accepted this ceasefire as rapidly as they did. But, let's just start from foundational aspects. One, we have the whole issue of global perception. Israel, of course, can articulate why they felt the need to attack Iran the way they did. But from the global perspective, it's a violation of the United Nations Charter, Article 2, Paragraph 4. Israel hasn't articulated a cognizable claim under Article 51. They haven't gone to the Security Council to make this claim. And so from many points of view, this is an illegal war of aggression, which automatically puts Israel in the loser block. That's up there with Imperial Japan attacking the United States on Pearl Harbor, etc. Two, if you're going to do this, if you're going to say, okay, we're going to take the risk of alienating the world, then let's see why you did this. Israel said that Iran's nuclear program posed an existential threat to Israel and to other nations because they had achieved a certain threshold status. Now, that's debatable given the fact that we had ongoing negotiations with the Iranians where they were willing to step back from almost every aspect of this verifiably. But let's just assume that you say you can't trust the Iranians. If your goal was to eliminate the Iranian nuclear program, their enrichment program, Israel failed. So they failed in that objective. Many aspects of their initial strike was regime change. It appeared that they're going for a decapitation strike. Indeed, some of the comments made by Benjamin Netanyahu afterwards was, step aside, let us finish this task of destroying your facilities, and then we can get on in peace and harmony. I think focusing more on the Iranian president and the foreign minister, who are known moderates, and trying to eliminate the IRGC and the more hardcore Iranian officers. While they did succeed in killing a number of people, there's no doubt about that, including 14 scientists, and we can get into the efficacy of that. The point is, there wasn't regime change. In fact, if that was the objective, it failed because the regime today, by many accounts, is stronger than ever. The Iranian people have rallied around the regime. And again, we get back to the nuclear aspect. 400 kilograms of uranium hexafluoride enriched to 60% is unaccounted for. No one knows where it is. Israel doesn't know where it is. We don't know where it is. We know where it's not. It's not beneath the ground in Natanz. It's not beneath the ground in Isfahan. It's not beneath the ground in Fordo. The other thing is the centrifuges. Some people say you can't remove the centrifuges that were in Fordo in Natanz. Maybe, maybe not, but it doesn't matter because since 2021, I think February of 2021, Iran stopped reporting centrifuge production to the IAEA. And the fact is today, Iran has the potential of having thousands of functional centrifuges that are outside the scope and scale of IAEA knowledge, therefore outside the scope and scale of what the United States and Israel know about. So if you take the uranium hexafluoride 60%, you take centrifuges, and you take the reality that Iran has dozens of Fordo-like hide sites throughout the nation that nobody knows about, all you've done is enable Iran to secret away the key aspects of a nuclear weaponization program without IAEA monitoring. And now what you've done is you've sort of pissed the Iranians off. They said, if you attack our nuclear sites, we can reverse the fatwa about the prohibition about nuclear weapons. Now, they haven't done that yet, but from the Israeli perspective, I mean, how is this a victory? Uranium hexafluoride unaccounted for, centrifuges unaccounted for, a pissed off Iranian government. that still possesses missiles that did a hell of a lot of damage to Israel. Does Israel really want to repeat this cycle again? I just see this as a loss for Israel. Again, hats off to the Israeli military. You guys knocked the crap out of the Iranians. You really did. And the Iranians acknowledge it. But they knocked the crap out of you too.
Okay. So there's some good points and some predictions there. So it's not really possible. Not every claim he's making is going to be possible to know. But let's try to analyze a couple of things. So he compares Israel's strike on Iran to Japan's, bombing of Pearl Harbor, basically calling it an illegal act of aggression. But that analogy, in my view, falls apart under scrutiny. For starters, Pearl Harbor was a surprise attack on a neutral country in peacetime. Okay, that's not what's happening here. Israel has effectively been at war with Iran since at least October 8th, when Iranian-backed proxies started launching rockets and drones at Israeli cities. So whether Iran pulled the trigger directly or not, it was clearly orchestrating the campaign through its regional network. So to say that this was some unprovoked attack or to imply that is totally false, and it's a false comparison. Now, it could still technically be a violation of international law, right? Is this a textbook preemptive self-defense is it under international law? It's debatable, I think. The reality is international law is vague when it comes to modern asymmetric warfare. When your enemy hides behind proxies, manipulates legal gray zones, and calls for your destruction while denying direct responsibility, the system doesn't really offer you a functional defense. And that's the real problem here. International law was designed to reduce war and limit destruction. But in the case of Israel, it can actually penalize self-defense. Iran gets to fund terror groups, arm Hezbollah to the teeth, and incite violence while enjoying legal immunity as long as it doesn't push the red button itself. That's a loophole. That's simply what it is. It's just a loophole in international law. So yes, even if Israel technically violated that, if the choice is going to be between survival and legality, or even morality and legality, then survival and morality, in my view, should take precedence. It is our nature to try and survive, and to demand any nation to sacrifice itself for ambiguous legalities is unserious. And even in general, there's a time and place for breaking the law. Would anyone argue that Black Americans in the Jim Crow South were wrong to defy the law because, it was the law of the time? Of course not. Law without moral foundation is just institutional coercion, and of course, and that's not real. All right. So now Ritter is arguing that as well, Israel, even if it was legal or whatever the case may be, it failed, because it didn't achieve regime change. But the problem is that wasn't necessarily the main objective, or even an objective. It could have been a psyops operation for all we know. And it's certainly not an official Israeli policy, right? So it may be long-term hope, sure, but it's not the immediate mission. And while it's obvious that Benjamin Netanyahu would be, very interested in seeing a regime change, it doesn't necessitate that that was the primary goal. So that's, in my view, we are changing. That's a changing the goalpost fallacy, right? It doesn't reflect necessarily what the actual goal was. So the fact that the Islamic Republic started walking back, it's if the Islamic Republic were going to, walk back its genocidal rhetoric, and if it were to signal genuine diplomatic interest, I believe Israel would absolutely engage with it. This is not about conquest; it's just simply security. And if the Iranians change their posture, I think most Israeli leaders would welcome that far more than a drawn out war. But yeah, let's see how John responds to this.